It started with a peculiar taste in the water. Some said it was a bit metallic, others claimed it was sweeter than usual. The people of Lancaster City, however, carried on with their lives, dismissing the slight change as just another quirk of their aging water system. But as days turned into weeks, the water did more than quench their thirst, it began to change them. Megan O'Connell was the first to notice something was different. She was a nurse at St. James Hospital, working the night shift. One evening, she reached for a cup of water from the dispenser, took a sip, and felt an odd tingling sensation rush through her body. She dismissed it, thinking it was exhaustion playing tricks on her mind. But that night, as she walked past a patient's room, she saw through the walls. It was a flash, brief but unmistakable. She could see the patient lying in bed, the machinery beeping rhythmically beside him. Panic set in. She blinked, shook her head, and the vision disappeared. For days, Megan kept quiet, but the occurrences became more frequent. She could see through walls, doors, and even people. Terrified, she confided in her husband, who suggested it was just stress. But Megan knew better. Something was happening to her, something unexplainable. Across town, Johnny Vanjik, a local artist known for his macabre sculptures, was experiencing his own transformation. He had always felt a connection to his art, but now, he could mold and shape his creations with his mind. It started with small adjustments, a tweak here, a nudge there. Soon, he was bending metal and stone as if they were clay. Johnny reveled in his newfound ability, his art becoming darker and more twisted with each passing day. His once morbid curiosity turned into an obsession, as he sought to push the limits of his powers. In the suburbs, a young boy named Ethan discovered he could manipulate electricity. It began with flickering lights in his bedroom, then escalated to controlling devices with a mere thought. His parents, bewildered and scared, tried to keep him away from anything electronic, but the power within him grew stronger and more uncontrollable. Ethan's emotions directly influenced his abilities. Anger caused power surges, while sadness led to blackouts. As these individuals grappled with their new powers, a sinister figure watched from the shadows. Dr. Harold Winters, a scientist at the local water treatment plant, had been conducting secret experiments for years. He had always believed that human evolution could be accelerated, and now, his theories were proving true. He monitored the city's water supply, adjusting chemical compositions, and eagerly awaited the results. The changes in the people of Lancaster were not accidental, they were the result of his deliberate tampering. Unbeknownst to the residents, Dr. Winters had a hidden agenda. He saw himself as a godlike figure, a puppet master pulling the strings. His ultimate goal was to create a superhuman race, with himself as their leader. He watched Megan, Johnny, Ethan, and others with a mixture of pride and anticipation, ready to reveal himself when the time was right. Megan's powers grew, and she began to see more than just through walls. She could glimpse into people's thoughts and memories, a gift she found both fascinating and terrifying. Johnny's sculptures became more elaborate and grotesque, his mind teetering on the edge of madness. Ethan's control over electricity reached new heights, and he started to experiment with creating electrical fields and manipulating the very currents in the air. As the water continued to weave its strange magic, the city of Lancaster transformed. Some residents embraced their new abilities, using them for good, while others succumbed to darker impulses. Crime rates soared, and the city teetered on the brink of chaos. Johnny Vanjik stood at the center of it all, his dark creations a testament to the power and horror unleashed upon the city. He began to hear whispers, soft at first, then louder, calling his name. He knew he was not alone in his transformation. There were others like him, and together, they could reshape the world. The whispers guided him to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. There, he found Megan and Ethan, along with a handful of others who had discovered their abilities. They stood together, a motley group bound by fate and the mysterious water that flowed through their veins. Dr. Harold Winters watched from the shadows, a smile curling on his lips. The time had come to reveal himself, to step into the light and claim his place as the architect of this new era. But as he moved forward, a sudden realization struck him. He had underestimated the power he had unleashed. The people of Lancaster were not his puppets, they were individuals with free will and immense potential. Megan sensed his presence first, her heightened perception detecting the malevolence that radiated from him. She turned to face the dark figure lurking in the shadows, her eyes narrowing with recognition and resolve. "We know what you did," she said, her voice steady despite the fear that gripped her heart. "You can't control us." Johnny Vanjik stepped forward, his hands crackling with energy. "This is our city," he declared, his voice a low growl. "And we won't let you destroy it." Dr. Winters sneered, his confidence faltering for the first time. "You have no idea what you're dealing with," he warned. "I gave you these powers, I can take them away." But even as he spoke, he knew the truth. The people of Lancaster were stronger than he had anticipated, their will unbreakable. They were no longer mere experiments, they were a force to be reckoned with. And so, the battle for Lancaster City began. Megan, Johnny, Ethan, and the others stood united against the man who had sought to play God. The streets echoed with the sounds of conflict, as powers clashed and destinies intertwined. In the end, it was not Dr. Winters' hubris that defined the fate of the city, but the courage and determination of its residents. They fought not just for themselves, but for the future of Lancaster, a future free from manipulation and fear. As the dust settled, the city stood on the brink of a new era. The water that had once been a source of chaos now held the promise of hope and renewal. And amid the ruins, Johnny Vanjik looked to the horizon, his heart filled with a newfound purpose. The story of Lancaster City was far from over. The water had gifted its people with powers beyond imagination, but it was their humanity that would shape the world to come. The aftermath of the battle left Lancaster City in a fragile state, the streets still bearing the scars of the conflict. Buildings were shattered, and the air hummed with an eerie silence, only broken by the occasional crackle of residual energy. The city's residents, now wary and uncertain, began to rebuild their lives amidst the rubble. But the changes wrought by the water were far from over. Johnny Vanjik, now seen as a leader among those with powers, gathered a council of the newly empowered. They met in the same warehouse where they had united against Dr. Winters, its vast space now a symbol of their collective strength and resolve. Megan, Ethan, and others like them formed the core of this group, their diverse abilities creating a tapestry of potential that could either save or doom their city. Megan had embraced her role as a mediator, using her powers of perception to sense the intentions of those around her. Her ability to see through the facades of people became invaluable, as she worked to forge alliances and prevent conflicts. Her nights were restless, filled with glimpses into the thoughts and fears of those she was trying to protect. Ethan, now more in control of his electrical manipulation, dedicated himself to restoring the city's infrastructure. He worked tirelessly to repair the power grid, his fingers dancing over wires and circuits with an ease that astonished even the most skilled engineers. Yet, his powers also attracted those who sought to exploit him, and he had to remain vigilant against those with darker motives. In the heart of the city, Johnny Vanjik's art studio had become a haven for those seeking to understand their abilities. His sculptures, once dark and twisted, began to reflect a more profound complexity, each piece telling a story of transformation and resilience. He used his telekinetic abilities to shape his art, drawing people together and fostering a sense of community. But not everyone embraced their powers for good. As with any great gift, there were those who succumbed to the allure of power and control. A faction emerged, led by a man named Derek Slater, who believed that those with abilities should rule over the ordinary. His followers, known as the Dominion, began to sow seeds of discord, exploiting the fear and uncertainty that gripped the city. Johnny, Megan, and Ethan knew they had to act quickly to counter this new threat. They reached out to those who had remained neutral, urging them to join their cause and stand against the Dominion. The struggle for the soul of Lancaster City intensified, the lines between friend and foe becoming increasingly blurred. One night, Megan received a vision, a glimpse into a possible future where the Dominion had seized control. The city lay in ruins, its people subjugated and powerless. She shared her vision with Johnny and Ethan, the urgency in her voice unmistakable. "We can't let this happen," Johnny said, his eyes burning with determination. "We have to stop Derek and his followers before it's too late." Ethan nodded, his jaw set in grim resolve. "We've come this far. We can't back down now." Together, they devised a plan to confront the Dominion. They knew it would be dangerous, that the cost could be high, but they also understood that the future of Lancaster City depended on their success. They gathered their allies, preparing for the final showdown. As dawn broke over the city, the stage was set for a confrontation that would determine the fate of all its residents. The Dominion, emboldened by their belief in their superiority, marched towards the city center. Derek Slater, his eyes filled with a twisted sense of destiny, led the charge. Johnny, Megan, Ethan, and their allies stood ready. The air was thick with tension, the silence before the storm. Powers clashed, the streets once again becoming a battleground. This time, however, the fight was not just for survival, but for the very essence of what Lancaster City would become. Megan used her perception to outmaneuver Derek's followers, anticipating their moves and guiding her allies to strike with precision. Ethan unleashed waves of electrical energy, disrupting the Dominion's attacks and protecting those who fought beside him. Johnny's sculptures came to life, their forms animated by his telekinesis, creating barriers and traps that turned the tide of battle. Derek Slater, his power growing with each passing moment, confronted Johnny in the heart of the city. Their clash was a spectacle of raw energy and willpower, each trying to overpower the other. The ground trembled beneath them, the air crackling with unrestrained force. "You think you can stop me?" Derek sneered, his eyes blazing with malevolence. "I am the future of the city." Johnny met his gaze, his expression resolute. "The future belongs to all of us, not just to those who seek to dominate. We are stronger together than we are apart." With a final surge of power, Johnny channeled all his strength into a concentrated blast, aiming directly at Derek. The force of the impact sent shockwaves through the air, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. When the dust settled, Derek lay defeated, his followers scattering in disarray. The battle was over, but the journey was far from complete. Lancaster City, now free from the immediate threat of the Dominion, faced the monumental task of healing and rebuilding. Johnny, Megan, Ethan, and their allies stood at the forefront of this effort, determined to create a future where all could thrive, regardless of their abilities. The water that had once brought chaos now held the promise of unity and strength. And as the people of Lancaster City looked towards the horizon, they knew that their greatest power lay not in their individual abilities, but in their collective spirit and resolve. The story of Lancaster was still unfolding, each chapter a testament to the enduring resilience of its people. The people of Lancaster County realized that their water, a source of immense power, was both a blessing and a curse. With no way to purify the supply or remove the extraordinary effects it had on those who consumed it, they knew they had to protect it at all costs. The potential for misuse was too great, and the threat of outside forces discovering its properties loomed ever larger. Johnny Vanjik and his allies, now seen as the protectors of Lancaster, convened to discuss their next steps. It was clear that they needed to take immediate action to safeguard the water from any external threats. The county became a fortress, its borders tightly controlled and monitored. Megan, with her heightened perception, took on the role of sentinel. She scoured the county for any signs of intrusion or betrayal, her mind attuned to the slightest hint of danger. She worked tirelessly, her visions guiding her to potential threats before they could materialize. Her ability to read thoughts and intentions proved invaluable in identifying those who might seek to exploit the water's power. Ethan, with his mastery over electricity, set up a network of security systems and surveillance devices. He fortified the county's infrastructure, creating barriers and safeguards to prevent unauthorized access. His efforts ensured that any attempt to breach the county's borders would be met with swift and decisive resistance. Johnny, whose telekinetic abilities had grown stronger, focused on uniting the community. He organized teams to patrol the borders, reinforcing the sense of solidarity among the residents. His art continued to inspire, serving as a reminder of their collective strength and resilience. The sculptures that once depicted chaos and fear now embodied hope and determination. Despite their efforts, rumors of the water's power began to spread beyond the county. Whispers reached the ears of those who hungered for control and dominance. Outside forces, driven by greed and ambition, started to converge on Lancaster. They saw the water as a means to amass unparalleled power, and they would stop at nothing to obtain it. One such group, known as the Consortium, was a shadowy organization with vast resources and a ruthless agenda. Led by a man named Victor Harrington, the Consortium specialized in acquiring and exploiting rare and valuable assets. When word of Lancaster's water reached Victor, He saw it as the ultimate prize. The consortium's operatives infiltrated the county, posing as refugees seeking shelter from a world that had grown increasingly hostile. They played on the sympathies of the residents, gaining their trust while secretly gathering information. Megan, despite her vigilance, struggled to distinguish friend from foe as the lines between truth and deception blurred. Johnny, sensing the growing danger, called for a council meeting. The leaders of Lancaster gathered in the warehouse, their expressions grave as they discussed the threat posed by the consortium. Megan reported her findings, her voice tinged with frustration and fear. "We're being watched," she said, her eyes scanning the room. "They're here, among us, waiting for the right moment to strike." Ethan clenched his fists, the air around him crackling with tension. "We can't let them take our water. If they succeed, it will mean the end of everything we've fought for." Johnny nodded, his face set in grim determination. "We have to act now, before it's too late. We need to identify the infiltrators and expel them from our county." The residents of Lancaster rallied together, their resolve unshaken. They intensified their efforts to root out the spies, using every resource at their disposal. Megan's visions became more frequent, guiding them to hidden threats. Ethan's security measures thwarted several attempts to sabotage their defenses. As the tension mounted, a decisive confrontation loomed. The consortium, realizing their covert tactics were failing, decided to launch a full-scale assault. Victor Harrington, confident in his superiority, led the attack himself, his eyes fixed on the prize that lay within Lancaster's borders. The night of the assault was marked by an ominous calm, the air thick with anticipation. The residents of Lancaster, now battle-hardened and united, prepared to defend their home. Johnny stood at the forefront, his telekinetic powers ready to unleash fury upon those who dared threaten his city. The battle was fierce and relentless. The consortium's operatives, armed with advanced weaponry and technology, clashed with the empowered residents. Megan moved through the chaos with precision, her visions guiding her strikes. Ethan unleashed waves of electrical energy, disabling the enemy's equipment and creating barriers to protect his allies. Victor Harrington, undeterred by the resistance, pushed forward, his eyes locked on Johnny. The two men faced each other in the heart of the city, a silent understanding passing between them. This was the moment that would decide the fate of Lancaster. "You can't win," Victor sneered, his voice filled with arrogance. "Your powers are nothing compared to my ambition." Johnny met his gaze, unwavering. "You underestimate us. This is our home, and we will defend it with everything we have." With a surge of telekinetic force, Johnny attacked, the ground shaking beneath them. Victor retaliated with a device designed to neutralize powers, but Johnny's will was stronger. The clash of forces sent shockwaves through the city, the air crackling with energy. In the end, it was the unity of Lancaster's residents that turned the tide. Megan, Ethan, and the others joined Johnny, their combined strength overwhelming Victor and his operatives. The consortium's forces were driven back, their ambitions shattered. Victor Harrington, defeated and humiliated, was taken into custody. The water of Lancaster remained protected, its secrets safe from those who would exploit it. The residents, though scarred by the conflict, emerged stronger and more resolute. The battle for Lancaster was over, but the vigilance remained. The county, now a fortress of resilience and solidarity, continued to thrive under the watchful eyes of Johnny Vanjik and his allies. The water that had once brought chaos now symbolized their enduring spirit and the unbreakable bond that held them together. And as the people of Lancaster looked to the future, they knew that their greatest strength lay in their unity and the unwavering resolve to protect their home. The high tensions within Lancaster County had created an atmosphere of constant vigilance, but Victor Harrington's audacious assault threatened to draw the attention of the entire nation. The residents knew that if word of their water's unique properties spread further, it would bring an onslaught of outside forces they couldn't hope to repel. Johnny Vanjik and the council met in the dim light of the warehouse, the air heavy with the gravity of their situation. The defeated Victor Harrington sat bound and defiant in the center of the room, his eyes still burning with a dangerous ambition. "We can't risk him escaping," Megan said, her voice steady but laden with the weight of the decision they faced. "If he gets out, he'll come back with more men, more weapons. He'll bring the entire country down upon us." Ethan, his face etched with the lines of exhaustion and resolve, nodded. "We've protected this place with everything we have. We can't let it be destroyed now." Johnny's gaze swept the room, meeting the eyes of each council member. They all understood what had to be done, but the finality of it was daunting. Lancaster County had always been a place of resilience and unity, but now it demanded a harsh justice to ensure its survival. "Victor Harrington has left us no choice," Johnny said, his voice low and somber. "He is a threat to everything we built here. We have to eliminate that threat once and for all." The decision was made, and preparations were swiftly undertaken. Harrington was escorted to an isolated location on the outskirts of the county, a place where no prying eyes could witness what was about to transpire. The council gathered in silence, the weight of their collective decision pressing down on them. Harrington, still defiant, spat at their feet as he was led to the makeshift gallows. "You think killing me will save you? Others will come. They always come." Megan stepped forward, her voice cold and unwavering. "You chose this path, Victor. You brought this upon yourself and upon us. We cannot allow you to bring ruin to our home." Ethan, standing by her side, activated the electrical device that would end Harrington's life swiftly. The air was thick with tension, the crackling of electricity a grim reminder of the power they wielded. Johnny took a deep breath, the weight of leadership bearing heavily upon him. "This is for Lancaster. This is for our future." With a nod, Ethan flipped the switch, and the surge of energy coursed through Harrington's body. His defiant scream was cut short, replaced by the sizzle of electricity and the heavy silence that followed. The deed was done, and Victor Harrington was no more. The council members stood in a solemn circle, the gravity of their actions sinking in. They had taken a life to protect their own, a necessary but harrowing decision. Johnny, Megan, and Ethan exchanged glances, their unspoken bond of trust and shared responsibility solidifying further. "We have to be ready," Johnny said quietly, his voice carrying a resolute edge. "This won't be the last threat we face. We must remain vigilant and united." The council dispersed, each member returning to their duties with a renewed sense of purpose. The people of Lancaster County, unaware of the grim act that had just been committed, continued their lives, sheltered and protected by those who bore the burden of leadership. Johnny Vanjik, standing alone in the quiet aftermath, gazed out over the city. The water, still flowing with its mysterious power, remained a symbol of both their strength and their vulnerability. He knew the future held more challenges, more battles to be fought. But for now, Lancaster was safe, and its people could look forward to another day. The horizon, tinged with the first light of dawn, held the promise of hope and resilience. And as Johnny turned away, he felt the weight of his duty settle on his shoulders, knowing that the story of Lancaster was far from over. Johnny Vanjik stood on the outskirts of Lancaster, the wind whispering through the fields as dusk settled over the horizon. The weight of their decision hung heavy in the air, but there was also a palpable sense of relief among the council members. They had done what was necessary to protect their home, to safeguard the fragile balance they had fought so hard to maintain. Megan joined Johnny, her eyes reflecting the fading light. "It had to be done," she murmured, her voice tinged with both sadness and resolve. "He would have brought destruction upon us." Johnny nodded slowly, his thoughts echoing her sentiments. "We can't afford to let anyone jeopardize what we've built here," he said quietly. "Not now, not ever." Ethan approached them, his expression solemn yet determined. "Lancaster is our home," he stated firmly. "We've fought too hard to let it fall into the wrong hands." As they stood together in the gathering darkness, a silent understanding passed between them. The challenges they faced were far from over, but they were united in their commitment to protect Lancaster and its people. The water, still coursing through the veins of their city, remained both a gift and a burden, a reminder of their resilience in the face of adversity. "We'll keep watch," Johnny said finally, his voice carrying a note of quiet determination. "We'll make sure nothing threatens Lancaster again." Megan joined him, her presence a reassuring anchor in the midst of uncertainty. "It's a daunting task," she admitted, her gaze sweeping over the city below. "But we've proven time and again that we can protect our own." Johnny nodded in agreement, his eyes fixed on the horizon where the last rays of sunlight painted the sky in hues of orange and pink. "The world may be vast and its governments powerful," he began, his voice steady and resolute, "but Lancaster is our home. And we will do whatever it takes to keep it safe." Ethan approached, his expression reflecting both determination and weariness. "We've faced threats from within and without," he said, his tone firm. "And we've come out stronger every time." As they stood together, silhouetted against the fading light, a sense of solidarity washed over them. The challenges ahead were formidable, but they drew strength from their shared commitment to Lancaster and its people. The water, with its mysterious powers, remained both a blessing and a burden, a symbol of their resilience in the face of adversity. "We can't do this alone," Megan remarked, breaking the silence that had settled between them. "We need to strengthen our alliances, build trust with neighboring counties, and be vigilant against any who seek to exploit us." Johnny nodded in agreement, his mind already racing with plans and strategies. "We'll reach out to our allies, forge new partnerships, and ensure that Lancaster remains a beacon of hope and strength." And with that shared resolve, they turned their attention back to the city below, the lights twinkling like stars against the backdrop of night. The weight of the world may press upon them, but in Lancaster, they found the strength to shoulder it together, united, and determined to protect their home from whatever challenges lay ahead. Alone in the quiet of his sanctuary, Johnny Vanjik withdrew a cherished relic from his pocket, a red rose necklace, its delicate petals etched with memories of journeys past and futures untold. As he held it up to the dim light, a faint glow shimmered within, an echo of the power that bound his lineage across the multiverse. A moment of contemplation hung heavy in the air as Johnny pondered the allure of breaching the boundaries that separated his reality from the myriad others where other Vanjikis thrived. Each a reflection, yet unique in their trials and triumphs, they beckoned to him like distant echoes in the wind. With a sigh, Johnny gently returned the necklace to its place, the glow fading into the shadow of his palm. His thoughts swirled with the possibilities of encountering alternate selves, sharing tales of horror and resilience, and uniting against forces unseen and untold. But for now, his duty lay rooted in the soil of Lancaster, where the weight of responsibility anchored him to the present. The city relied on him, Megan, Ethan, and their allies to shield it from external threats and nurture its fragile harmony amidst the chaos beyond. Closing his eyes, Johnny saluted the night sky, a silent vow passing through his lips. "Maybe next time," he murmured, the words carried away on a gentle breeze that whispered of futures yet to unfold. And with resolve renewed, he turned his gaze back to the horizon, where Lancaster awaited their home, their sanctuary, their battleground against the unknown. The multiverse held its mysteries and temptations, but for now, Johnny Vanjik stood steadfast, a guardian in the shadows, watching over the city that bore his name.